Customer service, done right, can be your company's single biggest competitive advantage. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution. Join customer service authority and best-selling author John DiJulius as he interviews leaders who are revolutionizing their industries. This is more than a podcast, though. It's a movement. The Customer Service Revolution is a radical overthrow of conventional business mentality designed to transform what customers and employees experience. If you're a revolutionary customer service leader who's ready to stop competing on price and obsessed with building a brand that people cannot live without, this podcast is for you.
Welcome back, revolutionaries. Today, we have Lori Saitz, a leading authority on improving productivity and engagement through the workplace well-being. She is the founder of Zen Leadership Program for results-focused professionals, a podcaster with a comprehensive background in wellness and communication strategies. Lori helps executives create focused, resilient, and collaborative teams that can move projects forward with less stress and drama. Hello, Lori. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, John.
Great to have you. Where does this podcast find you?
At the moment, I am zooming in from Richmond, Virginia.
Oh, good. And I saw that you went to American.
I did. Yes.
My son went there. Loved it.
Such a great experience. I am so happy I went to school there.
Yeah, he's living in Manhattan now, but he wants to move back to DC. He loves DC.
Yeah, it'll always have a special place in my heart.
Where'd you grow up?
You really want me to tell you? All right, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I grew up in New Jersey, but I got out as soon as I could.
What part? South or north?
Like North Central. So 45 minutes west of New York in a town called Berkeley Heights. Nobody knows where it is. It's near Short Hills. Everybody goes, oh yeah, I know where that is, because there's a mall there.
So does the accent come back out when you go home?
No, it does not.
Really? I can't tell. I usually could tell.
No.
Jersey.
Yeah, I know. But I've spent some time in radio and broadcast and no accent now.
How funny. How funny. I like Jersey. I like that whole area. Philly, New York, Boston. I think that's those are all great areas. Tough, honest people, but great cities, great food, great culture.
Learned how to parallel park really well.
Yeah, I bet. I'm surprised you even drove. Well, I guess in Jersey you kind of have to, right?
You kind of have to, right?
Yeah.
There's not really good public transportation.
So Lori, great topic. It's we're all dealing with it. I don't know if it's ever worse than it ever is. It always feels like, times are tougher. Social media has definitely played a part in it. I think work from home has played a part from it. Something I just wrote about in my new book, The Employee Experience Revolution. See what you think about this. Is for the first time in hundreds, if not thousands of years, managers have two new skill sets that they need that they've never needed before, never been taught in any leadership training school or anything. One is leading from a distance, right? We never had to worry about that before.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one, that you talk about is being concerned and aware with employee well-being. I mean, let's be honest, 10, 15, 50 years ago, that was not something you had to worry about as a manager, right or wrong.
I agree that people did not have to worry about it, or they chose not to worry about it. And at the same time, this is really about being human.
Yes,
like,
I always say human first.
For fellow humans.
Yes. Yeah. So do you address those in your topics?
The leading from a distance part is not an integral part of what I talk about, but it is, of course, it's a part of life these days.
Yeah.
And so it is, but much more I focus on that second part of it, which
wellness.
is, the employee well-being and employee wellness. And how do you help employees by giving them tools and techniques or whatever it is, a safe environment to bring their whole self to work.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, I mean, I got to believe a percentage, um, don't want to open up that Pandora's box, right? They think, they don't want to do that. Leaders,
Right.
the way I see it for my leaders, and myself is one that let's recognize, and what are those things that hopefully you can answer, that you could recognize when something's not going right for someone. The thing I struggle with, Lori, that maybe you can talk to, because I'm sure there's a percentage of people like me. I've never struggled. Knock on wood, thank God. At least I'm not aware of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is a great thing, but I kind of have blinders because I don't recognize when other people, right? Because I don't necessarily see the empathetic signs of, oh, I recognize, because I do that too.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot there. So how can leaders recognize and coach? I believe we're not asking our managers and leaders to become therapists, right?
No.
So go ahead.
No, not at all. We are asking them to employ some softer skills, which are actually more important than what have typically been considered the hard skills, like, math or sales or, uh, you know, customer service
Productivity,
management, things.
efficiency, lean.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. But it's interesting to me because these soft skills are really, again, how to be human. How, and we need to teach people how to be human, how to have compassion, how to be a little more vulnerable. And I say vulnerable, and I don't mean like just spilling your guts to about everything that's, going on in your world. But at the same time, there have been studies done that people respect and are more willing to follow a leader who expresses their vulnerability.
Yeah.
And that could look like something like, I'm not 100% sure which way to go in this thing. I'd like to gather some input and maybe you all can help me, or something like that. Just admitting that they are also human.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I was just having a conversation with somebody who works in a very competitive environment, and her husband passed away very suddenly
Mm.
I believe it was last year. And she came back to work after 2 weeks. One, because she didn't know what else to do. Like, I just want to get back to work. But she was afraid
And it
that
probably said in the employee handbook, I've been guilty of this, where employees come back really soon. And, I after a death, and I'd be like, why are you back?
yeah,
And one of the reasons was, well, it said in our employee handbook that they only get, and it's like, oh my God, you never think of that when you're writing a handbook.
right.
And you felt so like, oh my God. So go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but she was very concerned that she might start crying. And it's also very male dominated field that she works in. And so she had worked very hard throughout her career to never show vulnerability, because that could be a detriment to her career. But when you have a situation like that, and I haven't had a partner pass, but I've had parents, and you just don't know what's going to trigger you that you might tear up.
Yeah, it could be a song. It could
Yeah,
be,
it could be
a
something
video
somebody
clip.
says that's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
even
yeah.
related, but it
Right.
triggers something in you. And
Yeah.
so she was afraid of how she was going to be seen.
Yeah.
And so it's again, it comes back to like allowing a space where she eventually came in and said, uh, I think she had worked with a coach who said, just say, if you start to tear up, I just need a minute. Give me a minute. Like, and people respected that.
But I also like, you brought up something that, you know, uh, I don't know if you've ever heard of Walt Bettinger. He's the CEO of Charles Schwab, and I'm like, it's in your area. And I'm like, he's one of my favorite CEOs. He's not a Tim Cook, like, not everyone knows him, but there's just so many good things. And he talks about vulnerability, and that you have to be vulnerable and show that you aren't perfect. You didn't get here, you struggled, you
Right.
know, you still struggle. And then, employees, will be open. And I think, like even whether it's talking to a younger employee saying, hey, listen, I want to tell you when I started,
Mhm.
I thought I was going to get fired,
Right.
and they're like, oh my God, I thought just, rose to stardom. Or, I still struggle with this once in a while, the anniversary of my
Yeah.
so-and-so passing, or
Right.
here's what I did wrong, buried it, this, that,
Yeah.
whatever. Here's, through trial and error, I learned would help me cope with it. And I think that, is great vulnerability to demonstrate to an employee who now can say, well, to be honest, I have been struggling where, like you said,
Yeah.
they thought, it's definitely, it was, I believe it's a silver lining of the pandemic that it's not as taboo
Mhm.
as it once was. 5, 10, 50 years ago, you didn't talk about that.
Right. Right. Yeah, you definitely did not talk about it. And I think it's just it is an evolution in the humanization of business maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and then bringing in specific tools and techniques to help people manage. You mentioned at the beginning of the conversation about how much we have going on in our world now. So many things, social media, traditional media, all pulling at our minds and trying to distract us. They're
Yeah.
designed to distract us.
Yeah.
And how do you manage the thoughts in your head
Right. Right.
when you need to be focused on putting together a proposal or having a conversation with a team member or whatever it is, but you're still thinking about the argument you had with your partner or the conversation you need to have, with your dad next week about, you
Who's
know,
aging and
yeah,
early onset and all
right.
those things
And so how do you bring your thoughts back to the task at hand? And I think that's
without
one of the
burying them,
biggest
right?
challenges.
Because I'm
Yes.
good at burying them,
Yes.
ignoring them, and then they come out, in a bad
Right.
way, right? And
Right. Well, that's probably you're talking about burying emotions
yeah,
because thoughts are harder to bury,
yeah.
but thoughts are what's distracting you and causing those
All
emotions.
right.
So
So how
yes,
do
there
we
got a two piece
allow
there.
time for both? As a
Mhm.
leader, I got a lot to get, accomplished, and I got to do that.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's some shit I gotta own up to, face, and come
Right.
to terms with.
Right. So it's a matter of implementing some practices that allow you the ability to block those distractions when you need to. And so one of the biggest uh, practices that I teach my clients are some grounding exercises, grounding, calming exercises. Some people don't like the term meditation,
Yeah.
and some people are okay with it. And I'll share a little bit in a second about the meditation part, but the grounding exercises could be something as simple as breathing, like 3 minutes of focused breathing. And if somebody doesn't have 3 minutes, then your life is really messed up. But I mean, 3 minutes to focus on breathing really deep. Like, obviously, we're all breathing, but breathing really deeply into your abdomen and filling up your lungs and holding and just letting your shoulders relax away from your ears.
Happy employees lead to happy customers, which ultimately leads to happy shareholders. So, where do you find happy employees? Well, you could hire them that way. But the problem is, you also need to ensure you're keeping them that way. What if you had the resources to do both? Well, the DiJulius Group's Employee Experience Executive Academy, we enable you to do just that. Our 12-month part-time intensive course, similar to a master's program, contains a comprehensive curriculum which includes how to create a recruitment experience, an onboarding experience, and an employee experience that retains those happy employees. We also cover how to shape and strengthen organizational culture and how to use collaboration to tear down silos. Plus, you'll learn presentation skills and storytelling to inspire and align your team with your vision.
The curriculum covers building and developing great leaders, achieving work-life balance, and proven strategies for implementing and executing your newfound knowledge to ensure lasting impact within your organization. All of this happens with expert guidance from our highly experienced faculty and an interactive learning experience surrounded by like-minded individuals who come to the table with their own best practices to share. You can look forward to truly transformational results at the Employee Experience Executive Academy. Our graduates emerge as empowered leaders with the tools, strategies, and mindset to drive meaningful change and create an exceptional employee experience that fuels organizational growth. Learn more today by contacting Claudia at thedijuliusgroup.com.
My mind still races, and I probably don't do it enough and practice enough to get past all right, as soon as I'm done with these 3 minutes, I got to email Lori. I got to did it. And it becomes, it was my excuse for stop going to church because all I did was think about all the errands and to-dos I have to do while I was at church and didn't hear one thing that was said.
Right. Right. So can you take those 3 minutes and focus on those 3 minutes? Focus on the feeling of the air coming into your lungs. Focus on the feeling of relaxing your shoulders or relaxing your neck just for those 3 minutes, because what you're doing is you're oxygenating your brain and you're calming your entire nervous system. So after those 3 minutes, and saying to your thoughts as they're coming into your head while you're doing this, I see you. They're there for a reason. They want to make sure you don't forget. They want to make sure you don't look like a fool because you dropped the ball on something. They're there for a reason. And so saying to them, I see you. Thank you for reminding me.
Put a pin in it.
Right. I'll be back to you in 5 minutes. And doing that every time so that you can just focus on the breathing, because the breathing alone is going to help calm your whole nervous system so that when you come out of those 3 minutes and you go back into, now I got to do these 10 things. You're more focused. And it will
Now,
take
is
you
this a
less
horrible
time to do
idea?
those things.
When I used to get massages regularly, same thing, couldn't relax. And, it was almost too freeing because then I'd start thinking of, oh my God, I never responded to it. And then I'd start thinking of like an acronym or just a CFG. And those were like, C was call and, whatever. And so I always say, God, it would be so nice to have a pad next to me, but this probably be counterintuitive to have a pad next to me, when you're breathing. So would that help me get rid of the idea, or is that counterintuitive?
No, actually, that's a great idea because you can write it down. So now your brain goes, oh, okay. So you won't forget. I'll stop bugging you about it.
Right. Okay. All right.
Yeah. And I think the more you do this, John, I get it. In the beginning, it's really difficult because thoughts are going all over the place, but you're training your brain. It's like paving, and you are literally rewiring your brain. You're paving new pathways in your brain. So, like when someone puts down a new patch of grass and everybody walks on it and, it creates a path, but that path doesn't happen the first day.
No,
it happens after it's been walked on many times. And so I invite you and your listeners to do this, to be consistent with it, even if it's difficult, because ultimately you are going to see results immediately in those 3 minutes. After the 3 minutes, you can expect to be a little bit more focused. And then after you do it for a week, after you do it for 2 weeks, we could talk, there's 1,000 different people who have different views on how long it takes to create a habit. The thing is, can you be consistent, and do you feel better after you've been doing it for a day or 5 days or 20 days? If you don't feel better, I mean, it's going to take, like we said, a little bit of time to get into it. But if you start feeling better after, let's say, 5 or 7 days, can you continue?
And
Can
what
you
about
give it a little bit of time?
Do you recommend it? Do you do it at bedtime to just kind of
Yes.
transition from fireman to, because I don't fall asleep easily, without Ambien. So,
Okay.
yeah. So,
I recommend, people ask me this all the time. When's the best time to do a breathing exercise or a calming exercise or a meditation? And it's really whenever works for you.
yeah,
Again, there's so many misconceptions about it, and we probably don't have time to get all into that. But what it comes down to is what works for you. And so for myself, I always do it in the morning when I'm waking up. Your brain is in that in between alpha waves and beta brain waves. Beta is when we are fully awake, like right now. Alpha
yeah,
is that time that's in between awake and asleep. And that's when your brain is really receptive to new ideas and to taking in new information. And so if you can do some kind of meditative thing, some kind of calming exercise that helps you set your intention for the day
yeah.
at the beginning of the morning, instead of waking up like,
Attacking
oh my
the
God, I gotta
email,
go. I gotta go.
my
I gotta look at
phone,
my
my
email. I gotta look at my,
text.
yes. Can
So
you
here's
give
what I'm
yourself
doing,
a more,
Lori, because of you, I'm gonna, I get up and go outside in the morning,
Mhm.
while the weather permits.
Yes.
Have my coffee, turn on ESPN. Love it,
Yeah.
but I'd like to start off and go out in the sunlight
Yep.
and do this,
Mhm.
and that be the first thing. Because
Yep.
even watching sports, which is a great pleasurable habit for me, is already. So I think that 3 to 5 minutes or whatever it
Yes.
takes me, if
Yeah.
I can get more out of it, great. But I'm gonna try to commit to that.
Doing that. And then, like you said, at the end of the day, same thing. You're falling back into the alpha state of in between awake and asleep. Can you give yourself the time to quietly transition? Not watching the news, not I just turned my phone off and now I'm falling
Scrolling
asleep.
TikTok, headline news. I mean,
No,
I like to do that, but it's not good.
it's not good. And it's the research shows that keeps your brain awake.
Yeah. It's caffeine.
It is caffeine. And so the other thing I would recommend, you might want to try this, is
Yeah.
it's something called healing frequency music. There are
Mhm.
different frequencies of music, and it doesn't really there doesn't really matter too much which one, I don't think, but just getting your brain. Have you heard about white noise?
I think so. Yeah.
White noise is just that like kind of quiet background stuff, and then
Right.
there's brown noise and pink noise. They're at different frequencies, and the brain responds to those.
Yeah.
So putting on some of that, and then there's what's called healing frequency music, and it also
What about like
has the ability
ocean?
to,
Like,
ocean, yeah,
is that
sure.
good? Yeah.
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 Um, it gives the brain just it's kind of like a natural Ambien to
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
calm down.
Yeah.
Calm down. I fall asleep every night to I just randomly pick a healing frequency music. There's an app that I use called Insight Timer. I have no association with it. I just like it. I just
You
use
need to
it as
become a
a
sponsor of your podcast.
they need to. Yeah, because I'm always mentioning it to clients
Yeah.
and recommending it to friends. But finding healing frequency music on there, and just there's a sleep setting. So when it's done, it just shuts off, and just putting yourself to sleep with that.
And I know you talk about the power of gratitude.
Yeah.
And I think that's also a leader's superpower. Like I wrote down some superpowers, empathy and compassion, obviously, listening,
Hmm.
vulnerability, and I believe gratitude. And there's more, but I mean,
Yeah.
those are definitely strong. So let's talk about where build in, systematize, your gratitude. Is it at that evening mindfulness? What is it?
Yeah. Again, it's wherever it works for you. But I'm going to throw this out before I forget. But
Yeah.
there have been studies done that people who practice gratitude sleep better.
Mm,
So,
very good.
there have been other studies done. I think it was University of Pennsylvania that showed that leaders who practice gratitude, who share gratitude with their team, actually their teams will work harder for them, and that people who practice gratitude are 50% more productive.
Mm,
So it's a matter of uh personal gratitude, like using it, like you're saying, whether you want to recount your gratitudes for the day. What happened today that I'm grateful for?
Yeah.
As you're falling asleep, that could help you fall asleep. It could be something that you do at the dinner table with your family.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Do people have dinner together anymore?
some families do.
Really?
I've
Mm.
heard that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have any kids, so I'm on
Yeah.
my own,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but I've heard that a lot of families are making it a
That's good.
practice again.
Yeah. That's great.
Or it could be at whatever time everybody comes together. Maybe it's on a
Right.
weekend or
Right.
something like
Sundays.
that.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
In the car while you're carpooling, taking
Yeah.
your kids to, sports, whatever.
I have a mantra, so how I came up with this mantra or reminder, if you will, is, some people would say, family, employees, whoever closest to me,
Yep.
mostly would say, all you do is tell me what I do wrong. You don't, and I'd be like, are you crazy? Like I'm because of what I think, like, oh my God, I'm so lucky. They're the best. My kid, but I only thought it. I
Yes.
wouldn't tell them. And
Exactly.
it's like wrapping you a gift, but never giving it to you.
Right.
And then I can't believe you're not appreciative of my gift.
Yeah.
And so my mantra is think it, say it, or text it. And I try to do that. So when it pops in my mind, how lucky I am that I have Lindsay who works for me, or Bo is just maturing, my son, one of my sons, blah, 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 blah. Well, text it,
Yeah.
instead of just keep that up here.
Right. Right. Because you have to express the gratitude.
Yeah.
That's how, and why? Because I'm grateful for you, because I'm grateful that you did such a great job with this project, because this is how it impacts the client, or this is how it impacts the rest of the team, whatever it is. Putting a reason behind it makes it even more powerful.
Yeah.
And doing that consistently, because then again, you're setting the stage for your team to feel comfortable and to trust.
Yeah. And even like, to our first thing we talked about, the vulnerability and the well-being is, saying, Denise, I'm grateful or impressed or whatever the word is, the job you've been doing, even knowing you got some shit going on.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
I see that. I don't want you to think that goes missed, because I know it's not the easiest for you right now, but man, you show up and no one else knows. When you talk to your clients or, blah, blah, blah. So you're kind of, getting both of those,
Right.
respecting that they got, things happening.
Yeah.
And, I care more about you than just, how much profit you can make me, but also
Right.
the gratitude of the job they're doing.
Right. Now think about this from a personal standpoint. Does anybody in the world go, you know what? I've just gotten too much appreciation this
Right.
week. I don't need any more.
Right.
It's the complete opposite. Almost
Yeah.
nobody gets appreciated. And I'm not even going to say enough at all.
Right.
Like helping people understand the value that they bring to the table is really important.
Yeah. Yeah. I have this, I don't know if you ever do this, but I have the word of the year. I always have a word of the
Mhm.
year, and then I advertise to myself. It's on my mirror. One of my favorite words of the year, I guess I can, there's no rule that I can't repeat it.
Sure.
Was encouragement, encourage. And, on its surface, encourage is a good word. There's a lot of great words, but I stumbled on an article or something on encourage, and it had said the Greek translation is to make strong.
Mm.
And then I just started thinking, encourage, to put courage in.
Yes.
And that's all of our jobs, whether we're
Mhm.
leaders, parents, friends, humans, is that I put, so much courage in my boys, in my
Yeah.
employees, that, they have ridiculous, self-esteem and, confidence,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, it goes along with that.
And then you think about where the word courage came from. And in French, coeur is heart.
Ah, I didn't know that. All right. You added another spin to it.
Yeah.
Now, I believe your podcast is called Fine is a 4-letter word.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
That
And
is.
I always say in customer experience, fine is the F-bomb
Yes.
Because, how was everything today? If you say fine, people are like, oh, she didn't complain. No, that means let me get the hell out of here and tell 10 people how it wasn't worth the price you're charging, and
Right.
post on Yelp, Facebook, and everywhere else. So tell me about how what you mean fine is a 4-letter word.
We live in a society where people tell people they're fine all the time. And because they don't want to burden them with whatever's going on, or they don't want to admit it to themselves that
Yeah.
everything is not fine. Fine is we're just trained to say everything's fine. And it's not. For the most of the time that somebody says fine, like you're just saying, it is either much worse than that.
Yeah.
It's never, if it's way better than
It's
that,
never
they're
better.
not
Yeah.
going to say, they're
If you
not going
say
to say
fine,
fine.
it's not better.
No,
Yeah.
it's not. It's way worse.
All right, so you're not gonna like this, probably. So maybe you give it, but one of my biggest pet peeves in the world is when, and I believe if you ask 9 people today how they're doing, you know, 6, 7 will say fine. Okay,
Mhm.
so far so good.
Yep.
Now, this is kind of, maybe where I'm wrong, but I'm like, oh my God, like, you know, you know, how could you just be fine? You woke up. Did you see the news last night? Did you see the school shooting? Did you see, the war? Did you see this? And when you say so far so good, it's 8 a.m. What are you waiting for? So I go the opposite end of the extreme, like you're not grateful enough.
Mhm.
And the people that really need to know more, is your therapist and closest friends. So I don't know. Is that a bad too
Well, I think
old
again, it
school?
comes back to being human
Yeah.
and finding your humanity and saying, are you sure that everything's okay? Or like
Yeah.
really asking, I mean, if it's appropriate to let the person share, well, I things aren't going great, but I'll be okay. Or I'm looking for some help in this area. Well, like give them an opening
Yeah,
to
yeah. And
share.
I'm talking more on the innocuous, see at Starbucks,
Yeah.
walking by in a hallway.
Right.
Like it's more of a rhetorical question.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm like, oh my God, why are you such a Debbie Downer, right?
Right. Exactly.
Versus at dinner,
Yeah.
in a meeting one-on-one. Yes, you should, that goes back to probably your red flags of fine is saying things aren't great right now, professionally or personally.
Yeah, well, even when you're interacting with team members or colleagues and they say it's fine, it'd be like, all right, well, what's really going on?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yes, in situations, obviously, where you're talking to a barista, like there's nothing you're going to be able to do. We hope that they're listening to this show and hearing us talk right now and now never use the word fine again and are more authentic in their choice of words.
Yeah. 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 You talk about spirituality.
Hmm.
That's a hot political topic in the workplace. What's your take on it?
Spirituality is not about religion at all. It is, again, about bringing your spirit, your whole spirit to the job, to your life, like bringing your whole person to work. And when you do that, you're more engaged. Your team, if your employees are able to bring their whole person to work, they will be more engaged. They'll be more likely to stay and be more creative, be more innovative, be happy and contributing members of the
So
team.
where are we as leaders, society, preventing that of allowing them to bring their whole authentic self?
I think it comes back to creating an environment of trust. Like, can I come in and say, this thing happened in my home this week, and I'm really upset about it, and I'm getting over it, but I have moments. And talking about the origin of words, inspiration is inspire in spirit. Is again, it's about connecting with the spirit. It's like that light and that truth inside of you is what I would consider the spirit. And so that's where we're talking about bringing that part of you to the workplace in terms of spirituality. It is, I know it is for a long time had a religious connotation, and that's not
Right.
what we're talking about at all.
Yeah.
And so I think as leaders, again, allowing your people to be who they are and not have to hide that that maybe this part of the job is difficult for them or not their favorite part, like finding the ways to give your people the support they need to be their best self, to show up.
And so we will have the naysayers,
Yeah.
who are afraid to, open that Pandora's box because they think a percentage will use that to say, I can't come to work today.
Yeah.
That's why I'm, not as productive. How do you address that?
You're always going to have those people, and, people are going to choose to work for them or not choose to work for them. And I think that, that people need to be aware of what they're tolerating in their life and make choices accordingly. Like if that's the environment that a leader is creating and they're not going to change, you can't, you can either change how you respond to them, which is a lot of what we've been talking about today, is helping people respond better in different and difficult situations and make a different choice. Like either, again, continue to work there and accept that this is how it is, or find somewhere else to work. And I know a lot of people be like, but the economy and jobs are hard to find. Yes. And this is your life. You get this one life. You don't know how many years you have. And, is this how you're choosing to live it? Or would you like to live it a different way?
Right.
Choice.
We're talking to Lori Saitz, a leading authority on improving productivity and engagement through the workplace well-being. Lori, how can our listeners learn and follow you, learn more about you and follow you?
My website, my company is called Zen Rabbit. So
Okay.
the website is zenrabbit.com.
Okay.
And you can reach me, you can find me on LinkedIn, which if you go to zenrabbit.com, you'll find a link to my LinkedIn.
Yes, and I think everything is, well, I'm trying, I have all these to be in the show notes.
Okay.
Where to find you? I'm looking for the LinkedIn. Is it? Oh, there it is. Lori, Lori Saitz, and that's basically how you are all over social media.
Yes.
Correct.
That on LinkedIn and Zen Rabbit on the other socials.
Okay, great. Lori, I really appreciate it. I learned a lot, and so I know my listeners did. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, John.
All right, Revolutionaries, we'll be right back after this.
If you enjoy what you're learning on the Customer Service Revolution podcast, you'll love our weekly newsletter, The E-Service. It's full of great customer experience tips and stories, includes special offers, webinars, and more each week. To sign up, head to tdg.click/e-service. That's tdg.click/e-service, ESERVICE. Enter your preferred email address, and you can look forward to great advice from John in your inbox every Wednesday. We love to read your reviews. Please be sure to share your comments and let us know what you're enjoying most on the podcast. And to hear more episodes, be sure to subscribe now on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Thanks for listening and being part of the Customer Service Revolution.